Hey guys, if you like my content, hit those like and subscribe buttons. It really helps me out. Thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Esports Money, ESM, Mac10, whatever you want to call me, and welcome to my guide to jungling Weaver in patch 7.06F. Weaver is, well, he's not the best of junglers, but he's not as bad as I once thought because his range is actually longer than it feels. I think it's because his attack animation is so long and so slow that he's actually a decent cliff jungler in a lot of ways. Kind of like, his range is actually 50 higher than Shadow Shaman, and I think Shadow Shaman does an excellent job at this. However, Shadow Shaman is not a hero that will be spending nearly as much time in the jungle because you don't care about farm on him as much, at least in most circumstances. There are some where you want more farm because Shadow Shaman is a decent core, but whatever. So, anyway, as far as item build goes, pretty obvious. We're just going to be getting the Iron Talon. Now, in this video, for the purposes of demonstration, I stick around I basically show what you can get by 15 minutes, but you shouldn't stay in the jungle for 15 minutes. I get my Desolator at about 12 minutes, and I think even that's a little bit on the extreme. However, I did miss, I think, 1 or 2 stacks, so you can probably trim that down to about 11:30, maybe a little bit shorter, in which case it might be worth it for you to stay in that jungle that long, because once you have a pair of brown boots on top of that, start building towards your Lincoln Sphere, then you can just immediately start ripping people up. You come out at 11 minutes and 30 seconds with Desolator, with a maxed out passive on Weaver, he's going to be chewing through heroes immediately. So, that's what I did for the item build for the purposes of demonstration. In this guide, if you want to go for Midas, you can get a Midas at a pretty reasonable 7 minutes, 30 seconds, 8 minutes, 30 seconds, somewhere in that range, depending on how well you do. If you do this on the Dire, just add 90 seconds to every single timing because it's a little bit more sketch, and I don't recommend it on the Dire because you're going to be taking a lot more damage. So, skill build. So Weaver's a very interesting hero when it comes to skill build for a couple of reasons. One, the Swarm is a pretty good ability, and it's got pretty good scaling, but it's rather linear scaling. What I mean by linear scaling is you get a value point in level 1, and it increases. There's not a single level where you put additional point into it, and you get more than all the other levels. For the most part, Sakuchi can be looked at the same way. And then lastly, your Geminate attack, which is your passive, does not work this way. It has a 7-second cooldown and gives you a double attack. At level 1, level 2, it's a 6-second cooldown. At level 3, it's a 5-second cooldown, but it skips a second from 4 and goes down to 3 seconds at the last. So, specifically with this build, and I don't know if you should always be going Desolator, but you should almost always be getting Blightstone on this hero because you want the minus armor, because you have the double attack. I want to max Geminate attack first. It's not the first thing I want to put points into because of that 7-second cooldown, but it is the thing I want to max first because it's going to give me the biggest power jump by inputting a 4th point into it. So that's what I'm going to want to max first. But at level 1, I'm going to go ahead and get Sakuchi. Why are we getting Sakuchi at level 1? Well, a couple of reasons. One, I can start out by Iron Taloning the big creep at the hard camp, Sakuchi through them to do a little bit of damage, then run up on the cliff, and then start my cliff jungle. Also, another thing, you probably will be a little bit safer than I am in this video because I had a very improbably high amount of large troll camps during this video. So anyway, so you use the Sakuchi to get up on the high ground, and with the max move speed, so it doesn't cost you much time, and you do a small amount of AoE damage to the creeps that are in the large camp. But the reason that you get a value point in level 1, most importantly, is if someone tries to gank you, they have to actually commit detection, and for the most part, you're going to have pretty high health. Well, percentage-wise, you have no health because you're Weaver, but you'll have a pretty high percentage of health, and so when heroes try to come gank you, you should be able to escape if you have that single point in Sakuchi. At level 3, I'm going to go ahead and get a point into the Swarm, my Q. I was talking earlier about how it's a very good value option. One thing that's really important to remember about the Swarm, and this isn't part of the jungling part of it, but it's something that you really should know if you're playing Weaver, especially if you're going for a Desolator. The Swarm, little Swarmlings, require 8 attacks to kill, regardless of the level of the Swarm. That is constant across all levels. So it's going to take just as long for a creep wave to kill it as it would at level 1 and level 4. It takes the same amount of time. So if you go to push a tower and you have your creep wave there, and you're hitting it with your Deso, and you know your timing, so you're like, let's say you're like 25 seconds in your mid lane, something like that, and you know, or 20 seconds, and you know that the creep wave is about to come, you can step up to the tower or slightly past the tower, throw out the swarm, and it will latch onto the oncoming creep wave, and then you have the timing of 8 auto attacks until all of those creeps can move down to the wave. And during that period of time, you can kill the tower. It's a pretty large window for you and your creeps to do a significant amount of damage. As far as its scaling goes, the cooldown decreases, which is nice, but it's not the biggest deal because you're kind of starved for mana as Weaver, so you're not as worried about the cooldown. But the tick interval at which it does damage goes down, and the amount of damage per tick goes up, and another constant across all levels is it reduces armor by 1 per tick. So it's very nice to use to help boost your jungle, even at level 1 because of the minus armor, but you want to make sure that you always have enough mana for Sakuchi in case of emergencies, and it's very good for pushing. So it's one of the best value points at level 1 in the game, in my opinion. It's very good. The Geminate attack, we've already been over why you max this out, but you will be maxing this out by level 7. And then by level 10, I prefer to max out Sakuchi. So by leveling Sakuchi, you get additional points of damage into it. You get 25 at each level, and the cooldown goes down, which does more damage. The damage is a nice aspect of it, but reducing the cooldown and the max movement speed increases your kill potential, and it makes it harder for you to kill. So I'm going to max that by level 10, and then at level 11, instead of getting an additional point into the swarm, I'm going to go ahead and take my talent. Personally, I prefer the 30 Sakuchi damage because there's a lot of instances where you're a Weaver and you really feel like you're dropping a long range, like bomb on someone with your double Geminate attack, and every little bit of damage counts because people will escape from you occasionally, often enough, with a very small amount of health that I like to get the extra damage into Sakuchi. But if you want to get the strength, it's not a bad call because Weaver, as we've talked about, is he's not tanky at all, but I personally would encourage you to play Weaver to the extent where I'm really trying not to get hit ever anyway, so it doesn't matter as much. At level 15, his talents are +7 all stats and +25 damage. This one, again, is largely up to you. If you go for the stats, you're going to get 7 damage anyway, and you're going to get a little bit of attack speed, so you can consider that kind of, I don't know, as far as DPS is concerned, maybe somewhere around 10. But you have to think about that +25, that +25 damage is +50, and the +10 damage from the stats is +20. So if you're having issues with mana, or if you went for the strength at level 10 and you're trying to be more tanky, you're trying to play a style that's more forgiving, go for the stats. If you're trying to practice never getting hit and just showing up out of nowhere and blowing people up, +25 damage all the way. At level 20, same exact theme. Do you want to do more damage or do you want survivability? You have to choose between 15 agility and 200 health. Personally, I think the agility is slightly better, but the 200 health is pretty significant, especially considering agility is attack speed, and Weaver doesn't care about attack speed as much because he relies on Geminate to deal multiple attacks at once, and he has a very low attack rate anyway. So that's my thoughts on that talent. As far as the level 25 talent goes, I would say that this is one of the only ones in the entire list that is more dictated by the flow of the game that you're playing rather than the way you want to play. So at level 25, your choices are 200 plus Sakuchi move speed, which moves you from 550 to 750, so you are almost 50% faster, you're about 45% faster than maximum move speed, or a haste rune, if you get this talent. Or, again, 35% magic resistance. If you are against a lot of magic damage, then go for the magic resistance if the magic damage is coming out of cores. You know, like a Zeus or a Lina, someone, or Lion Ulti, someone that's got a huge amount of magic damage that's killing you. Lina, though, you got the whole pure damage thing going on, so take that into account. But with the magic resistance, I strongly encourage you to only get the magic resist talent if you are against magic damage based cores, which is actually pretty good in this meta because you're against a lot of things like Necrolite and you're against Venomancer a lot, so the magic resist talent does help a good bit. And Necrolite and Venomancer are both pretty good against Weaver because even though he can run away, they can still hit him with abilities, and if you force him to use a his ultimate, then one of the other of the two of them can continue to do damage. Or if you're Venomancer, you can hit with a Gale, and you have to bait the Weaver into backtracking, or he has to take the Gale damage, waiting for you to use your ultimate to backtrack again, to do the backtrack. So, or time lapse. Time lapse backtrack. Just pretend I was saying time lapse the whole time. So, lastly, as far as item build goes, I will get Brown Boots and Hold Till Boots of Travel, and after I have my Desolator, I will typically go for Lincoln Sphere, and I like to get Dragon Lance immediately after Deso, and then get a Daedalus. So that's typically the way I play the hero. Later on, Heart, Scotty, it's kind of up to you what you want to do. But he's a really, really fun hero. His Ags is pretty good, but I still prefer to just get a Lincolns and kind of call it a day on the defensive edge, unless I really need a Heart. But again, don't really want to be going down that road with Weaver. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Oh, and if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and all that stuff. Really helps me out. Yeah.